Where is
They
it?
took one out.
This one they took out?
I have one went in here,
Yeah.
one went here. So I have the bullet just here, you can actually feel
You
it.
can feel it?
Yeah. You feel
No
it?
way.
Yeah. I have one on my neck here as well.
Can you feel that one too?
So I got three bullets.
You have 3 bullets in your neck now? Why didn't they take them out?
They said it was too dangerous. Like, so. It's my chat-up line.
Yeah, I'm sure it works.
Sometimes.
Sometimes,
Depends on who you're chatting to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have different stories for different people.
Oh, well, tell me the most successful one.
Well, the bullet is the most successful.
Yeah,
one.
I can imagine.
It depends on who you're talking to.
Quite unique, I must say.
What part of the side? You're from Nicosia, yeah?
Yeah. You live in there?
Yeah. I was in. I actually went through Leisure Street when they opened it one time. They opened it. Is it still open?
Yeah, it's open.
It's open. I think I was the first Irish person to go over.
Yeah.
Because they opened it the day it opened. I was there, so I drove up and I went through.
And what did you think?
Well, I just wanted to go through because of the history and stuff. Yeah, it was very interesting. I had loads and loads of photographs. The memory card on my camera overloaded and I lost all the photos. I have no photos, which is a bit of a bummer, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, what were you doing there?
I just went up my own bed. I was studying the icons. I don't know if you've seen some of my work.
Yeah, we saw your work.
So I was studying with a guy in Paphos. They're called, what is this? I don't remember. I can't, my pronunciation will be very bad. Nikitas.
Yeah.
And so he was doing it, so I did a class with him every day. And then I rented a studio and I did some work there as well. Not so good work. My time over there, the work I did wasn't very good. But since then, when I came back, then I used the icons more. And then I don't really go by the book on how to do icons. I just put my own little interpretation on it. But I really enjoy it.
Do you want to get into murals? Because we went and saw the murals from Belfast and Derry. Are you not interested in doing?
Well, I've just never had the opportunity to do them. You know, that was pure and simple. And I live down in Kerry. There's no walls for murals down in Kerry, you know.
They don't do murals.
Yeah.
There's no walls.
There's no walls. Well, you know, there wouldn't be
countryside.
There wouldn't be walls straight that you could paint on. They're all stone walls and stuff, you know. So that's why I have never really got into murals.
But you need to be invited to do a mural, or anybody can go and...
I don't know. I suppose if a group of people can get together and if you can find someone who's willing to give you the wall, then you can do your mural on.
Yeah, but who's in charge of the wall? We saw a guy who was painting a mural.
Did you?
Yeah, we didn't ask him who gave him permission or what.
I'm not too sure.
I don't know. Like if I can just go and start painting.
I don't think you can just go and start
Like
painting. I think what you need to do is get permission. But in the different areas, say around Belfast, you would have committees that look after the particular area.
Yeah, neighbourhoods. Yeah,
So
it would be a neighbourhood thing. Unless you do a Banksy on it. You just go out at night and do a really quick mural. And then, did you see one was cut down in England 2 weeks ago? They cut it out of the wall and they sold it for 40,000.
Which one?
It was one of the first ones. It was one that was done against the Diamond Jubilee of the Queen. It was, as far as I know, it was a little kid, picture of a little child sitting with a crown, the Queen's crown on the head, and it was sort of his, I suppose, protest against the, because he'd be anti-royal, you know.
Oh. Apparently his manager is a Cypriot guy.
I wouldn't be surprised. Cypriots are good business people.
Yeah, they have together on Greek Street or something like that. Yeah.
There's two artists, brothers. They're Cypriots.
Jake and Dinos Chapman.
The guy I was working with, Nikitas, that's his, I think they're his uncle or his cousin, but they're related to him. And he was telling me about them, and I hadn't really heard about them.
No, I haven't either.
They're very famous, aren't they?
The Chapman brothers.
Chapmans, yeah, that's
And
it.
they're Cypriot?
Yeah, they're Greek Cypriots, born and raised in England.
Oh, okay.
And Sachi and Sachi, they're in the new British artist big, huge movement, and they do little war soldiers.
Oh, is that them? Okay,
Yes.
brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
They did a whole, say, the concentration camps.
All right.
And what they did is they actually got the little toy soldiers and painted them as the Nazis and stuff like that, but actually had them like doing the executions. And
Oh.
it was quite horrific,
Yeah.
but done in a toy. So it was
Exactly.
very, and a lot of them got destroyed, didn't they, in a fire. I
Exactly.
think that original piece
Yes.
got destroyed. It was amazing.
So
Really good work.
it's in our blood doing kind of political art.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it would be obviously from a divided island. And you see, where I came into my art was in prison.
Ah.
So, from being a political prisoner, I sort of did my time. I did art in prison, and then I used a lot of my art was very political or against. We had a thing called Section 31 here, broadcasting ban, and basically anybody from the Republican movement weren't allowed to be interviewed on national TV.
Ah.
They were
Censorship.
banned. It was censorship, total censorship. So one of my first pieces I did was a big mural, actually. It was about, well, the size of this curtain here, on a big canvas, and that was it was against that piece, Section 31. It was against the censorship. So all my stuff was very much political. Not all of it, but most of it
Yes.
was political. I mean, obviously we would try and do nice landscapes because I wasn't a formal artist or trained as an artist. So it was nice to be able to get your anger out, use it as a way of getting your ideas across or your angst or whatever. Because I was in prison for was it 5 years. So I had originally got 8 years, but because of the peace process we were released early.
Why were you put in prison?
Well, I was in the IRA, and we went to rob a bank, and that's when I got shot.
For a good cause?
For the movement, to buy guns, to buy weapons, to buy for the war.
From Germany.
Well, wherever they come from, I suppose.
That's what I found out. Not from Israel anyway.
Oh, definitely not.
No, I don't think so. I don't think the Israelis would give them to us either, you know.
Well, traditionally, a lot of, as far as I'm aware, a lot of the weaponry came in from Libya.
Well, there would have been stuff. There would have been a lot from Libya, but they would have come in from America as well.
Oh, huge amounts.
Lots of from America, and then Eastern European countries. So basically, you buy weapons wherever you can get them. You know, no matter what. Or you try and they tried to rob weapons a couple of times. Funny enough, I was shot with an Uzi submachine gun, which is an Israeli gun.
Oh no.
So that's that problem in Israel as well. Fuck the Palestinians.
We'll all drink
Because
to that.
the murals were what, Nikki?
They were all Palestine, Cubans, Che Guevara, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Why is nobody identifying with us?
Yeah, great, tell us. Because you're half Cypriot. Why is nobody
I don't
identifying?
understand. Like we have the same problem. Like we use you as an example.
Yeah, no, I understand. I see what you mean. I don't know, because I know I always had an interest in it because of Greg. So I knew a bit about Cyprus. We didn't really get much information about Cyprus.
But you were working with our freedom
Snippets.
fighters as well, like the IRA with the Oka. They were also very closely related.
That goes back to, we're talking
That
about.
was his great grandfather.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's there.
Yeah.
No, but if you're going to
The black
take
and
the
white test.
Palestinians and the Che Guevaras and the Cubans and the
Yeah.
this and the that,
I think a lot of, I suppose, countries and people who rose up against oppression modelled a lot of what they did on the IRA because the IRA was so effective. And it would have been very well publicised because it was against one of the bigger colonial powers, England. And people saw that the British could not defeat the IRA, so that became a template for a lot of countries to rise up against the oppressor, which was the British and other countries.
yeah.
But I think people who would be Republicans would be aware of.
Well, anybody that with political any political interest at all would know a bit about. But it's a very good question you asked, though, and I actually can't really answer why the Cypriot situation wasn't more to the front here, as you say, with murals. But I know that for one, we would get a lot more information about Palestine. All the time, Palestine.
Because there's a lot of Palestinians here, not a
No.
lot of Cypriots too?
No, it's not that. No, it's because the Palestinian situation is ongoing.
So
Like
is
there's-
the Cyprus?
Yes, it is ongoing, but it's divided. There's no war going on. You know?
Yeah, it's not an active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's different. But I would say any Republican would know. Any Republicans in Ireland would know about it and would sympathise with the Greek side because they were invaded by a foreign country.
Yeah.
And that's what we like. That's exactly what happened to us years ago. We were invaded by a foreign country.
Yeah.
And we always support the underdog anyway.
That's traditional Irish, isn't it?
We're the underdog.
Unfortunately.
So do you feel like the underdog also, kind of?
Oh yeah, we're proud to be underdogs. It's okay to be underdogs.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to be the guy up there with the cigar, you know, unless you're Che Guevara or something. You know what I mean? You don't want to be the boss or the well, Irish people don't particularly.
No.
You know, we would rebel against everything that's sort of people that tell you what to do
Yeah, sure,
and
yeah.
to.
Dominance. Anybody
Yeah.
who would try to impose their will always met with resistance.
Yeah.
You know, there was a very old there's a very old saying in the Republican movement: you may kill the revolutionary, but never the revolution. I suppose that was a lot of that was at the centre.
Yeah.
So you've got one thing common with Che Guevara, the doctor part.
Yeah.
And you see, with Che Guevara when he I think when he went to Bolivia, I think there was a choice between taking his medical bag or a weapon, and he chose a weapon because he couldn't carry it through the jungle or whatever. So that was the one turning point for Che Guevara, I think. You know, but he. I suppose Che Guevara is the iconic revolutionary. But of course, you know, Che Guevara was Irish.
Of course.
You are?
Yes,
Originally
yes.
from Galway.
He was also
Yeah,
Irish,
from
yes.
Galway.
with Obama and
Yeah.
Well,
We don't want Obama, please.
You don't?
But no. I would
Really?
no. I don't like Obama. I don't like any of the American politicians. I think they're all the same.
Okay.
I think every one of them, they're just puppets. And I think what America have done, especially in supporting Israel all these years,
Yeah.
is just totally wrong.
Yeah.
Well, Obama, there was a lot of great talk when he was first being elected or when he stood up. I'm sure everybody around here would have said, yeah,
Man of
we'd
the
hope,
people.
yeah, and we'd support him. I think most,
Yeah.
but I think now I think he's done nothing.
Well, what he has done is he's introduced more draconian laws
Yeah.
in the United States that even his predecessor Bush hadn't. Americans now, if they're deemed to be a threat to national security, can be locked away without trial.
And which
That's
is
American
happening at the
democracy.
moment.
It is happening.
All the time.
Also,
It's
if you
probably-
look at it, Obama has invested and pushed the whole drone project,
Yeah,
and there's been more drone strikes under Obama
than any other.
than any
Yeah.
other. So, I suppose outwardly people see Obama as a man of the people, but inwardly he's pushing the American policies that people actually thought he would be
Getting rid of it.
against.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's the Congress.
It is one.
The Congress.
Congress.
Yeah, a lot to do with the Congress, absolutely. But I don't think there's any politician will ever go up in America, any president can change it, he can't. It's as you say, the Congress or whatever they have.
Oh, the
Senate.
Senate.
It's whoever dominates the Senate.
And it's
really.
Republicans
Yeah.
dominated.
Yeah. That's right.
At least he changed the health system.
Mhm.
That was good. Did something good.
I'm sure he did. No, he did do good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would nearly prefer to have a Bush there, a real enemy that I know I can hate.
You can
Okay,
see,
yeah,
you can actually
No, I don't
see.
like this man. You know, where the
Yeah.
other fella you say, oh, well, he's got great charisma.
Yeah.
He comes over here and he pretends he's Irish.
Yeah.
He drinks Guinness. You know,
Yeah.
you're like,
It's like every American president appears to have had
Irish.
roots.
yeah.
Again, even going back to
Reagan was over
Reagan
here.
had, and he was probably the most
Fascist
conservative
of them all.
fascist. Okay, I'll go with fascist. I suppose.
Yeah.
But even if you look at Che Guevara, originally, if you trace back his origins,
It's
family origins.
Were Lynch. It's the name Lynch,
Mm.
and it was, as you said, it was a Galway. It's a Galway connection.
There's a lot of controversy over the monument they want to put up in Galway, because the people who may be conservative or lean to the right are saying, why would you know...
Basically, they were saying that why would you put a statue of a terrorist up? I couldn't believe when I heard this. I just was flabbergasted by it. You know. It's unreal. You know,
even the Argentinian Navy was set up by an Irishman.
that's right. Yeah. What was his name? Burke or something, was it?
I think it was. Yeah. Irish people have branched out all over the world, and they've influenced a lot of development in countries throughout the world over the years, generations, hundreds of years.
So will there be a free whole island, Ireland? Ever? Like we say there will be a free Cyprus?
Unfortunately, not.
No.
Initially, the British.
Unless you get rid of the banks, you get rid of the government, we get rid of all the guards, all the cops, all the soldiers, and people. It will never happen, unfortunately, because I think from what I believed I was fighting for, I don't think it ever happened. Because it's just the banks rule this country, and it rules the world, and it rules Cyprus, and it rules America. It's money, money, money. It's not that you can just have a revolution and everything changes. And I think, unless the only country at the moment who I think are probably close to a free society is Iceland. Scandinavian countries also, more
Yes.
so. But definitely, I know in Ireland, we could have a revolution tomorrow and we could change everything, but the money people would still have control. You know, so it's
What about
unfortunately.
through our art?
To see, well, the only thing about the art is we can maybe inform people. That's what I like my art to do, is maybe make people think. And art is free, yes, you can be free through your art, absolutely. Once there's no censorship. And I come across censorship even at the moment, I come across censorship all the time. And I'm actually they're doing a documentary at the moment, and I bet you it'll be censored in some form. Now I'm trying to give them everything and make sure they
They're
show.
doing a documentary on what?
On my art and because of where I came from, prison and being in the IRA. So, but it's RTE are making it, which is the National Broadcasters of Ireland. These are the ones who censored things only 20, not even, was it? 20 years ago.
20. Yeah, well, yeah.
Sort of then.
Even right up to the time of the Good
Peace.
Friday agreements, they were very, I suppose, picky in what they would have broadcast. They never wanted to upset the status quo, the relationship they would have had with the British. And a lot of it was really around appeasement, so they would probably show the uglier side of rising up, but they never actually showed the impact on the people who were actually suffering under a totalitarian regime, you could basically say. Oh, Joe, that looks amazing.
Just like that, Joe. Well done.
What is this? Let's have an
It's
introduction.
Madonna.
With the Zivania?
No. With the Uzza.
With the Uzza.
With Anari.
Yes.
So you've retired though from this typical IRA stuff? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Now
Completely
it's
retired.
through your art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my weapon now.
Is it because of the prison or?
Well, I just want to get, I want to
Did
get
you
on
get
my life, but
elected
also
now?
there has been the peace
Once,
process. So basically there is no war anymore.
No, but there's this real IRA or whatever.
Yeah, but there is that.
You're
But
done with it.
Well, that's debatable what they are.
yeah,
what they
it's
are,
very debatable.
You know.
you know, and I've no interest. I think the way I feel is that I've done as much as I could do,
Yeah.
and I feel that maybe through my art it would be, this is my best way to
Yeah.
go. If I, you know,
Yeah.
there's not much I can do. Thank you.
Just one for Mickey.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to.
I'm watching my anything.
So where are you going to? Where would you want to study? Where would you prefer?
I don't know actually. Because I came here and it's a little bit cold.
Oh, you
No.
Okay, you're not to get used to that. You need jumpers. You need to wear
I
jumpers.
had an interview in Tipperary on Monday, and Tipperary was a little bit too small, too village-like. I don't know if I
Greg
could
was
survive
saying
there.
you went to Cork.
No, we didn't actually go
Oh,
to
right.
Cork.
You're supposed to.
I tried to go, but
Oh,
I
didn't
think
work
I'm
out.
gonna leave. I think only Dublin I'd be okay with living in.
Who wants wine?
Definitely not Tipperary.
Red or white?
Tipperary is the hub of nightlife and
It
it's
is.
such a cosmopolitan, multicultural, diverse
wine?
place. No? Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
No,
But Cork is nice, but yeah, Dublin is obviously it's bigger.
I don't know what show would I want yet.
I think if it was me, and this is just personally, and it's probably because I know Cork, I would probably pick Cork.
Over Dublin.
Cork, I think, would be friendlier. Also, Cork has a very strong tradition. They call Cork the rebel county because Cork were a thorn in the side of the British when they occupied the whole of Ireland.
He's talking about a county
Yeah.
who brought the Queen. Right?
Well,
you know what I mean? The rebel thing is the biggest load of crap that I've ever heard. No, I'm not going with that one. I'm not going to let that one
He's
through.
not gonna let that one. I have to disagree. The Cork people are very faithful people. They're strong. I don't think a lot. I think if I had gone to the people, I think traditionally, a lot of them probably would have said no way, because of what the Black and Tans did in Cork, the butchery against the
Oh, yeah.
people. I don't think that the ordinary people in the street had a say in that at all. We could have saw another Michael Colley on the Blah incident there with Queen. What's her name? Elizabeth. After all, after all, not that she was. She is the commander in chief of the British Armed Forces.
That's true.
So
you know.
people would and possibly may have, I'm not saying, but possibly may have a legitimate reason to say that she's a legitimate target.
Well, there was
Illegitimate what?
A legitimate target.
Ah.
Because she is Commander-in-Chief of the British Armed Forces.
And you are from where? From...
I'm from Dublin.
Are you from Dublin? But you don't live in Dublin.
No, I live in Kerry now. I moved down to Kerry. Yeah. I lived just near Greg. We were close neighbours.
We lived in Sandymount, which is a...
It's actually a very middle class area, and from that area, many Republicans. There was so many. There was a load of us.
Within a, I suppose, literally within about 5 minutes walking distance of...
It's something else.
It's
actually, when you
crazy.
think about it.
Yeah.
When I got introduced to my Republican, how I got my beliefs, my political beliefs, because we didn't get much down here about what was going on in the north. When I was very young, I don't know if you remember this. There's another friend of ours, John McCann, and he did time in England for IRA membership.
He was accused,
Alleged, when he eventually got out.
plotting to kill the British Home Secretary
Yeah.
Tom King with two other people. Really, he was convicted on conspiracy.
Yeah.
I think the UK, England, the British are one of the only countries that could charge you with conspiracy. So if they believe that you're thinking about doing something, then they can throw a conspiracy charge at you. They had absolutely no evidence against them.
And how long
But
did they hold them?
Pardon?
How long did they hold them?
Oh, they were convicted. They were all given 25 years.
But they
Oh. And then what
have it all. They appealed it, and they had it overturned after about maybe 3 years.
The reason they had it overturned was that during their trial, the person they were basically set up allegedly to kill made comments, because at the time you could exercise your right to silence, and they exercised their right to silence because
That's
obviously
true.
they wanted solicitors and they didn't want anything manipulated, so
But
they
also,
exercised their right to silence.
it is your right for silence. They actually say that to you. You've got the right to remain silent, so you don't have to say anything. Because if they ask you a question and if you say no, they could put it down to he said yes, or So if you just say nothing, they can't twist the words that you say.
But it was the person who they were
Tom Kenny.
allegedly going to kill who turned around during their trial and said, if a person exercised their right to silence, it's a sign of guilt. So they prejudiced the trial.
So
and they had their
how they
overturned.
But when we were younger, we lived in a middle class area, right beside the seafront. But we met a family. A family had been burnt out of their houses in Belfast, and they were refugees, like similar to what happened in Cyprus. And they came down to Dublin for safety, and they lived in it. And we met one of the kids. It was like a bit older than us. Do you remember him?
I do remember them.
I want to find out
It
his
was
name.
literally across the road, I think.
Yeah.
John McCann.
Yeah.
And they were staying with an aunt of theirs.
That's it.
That's right.
And he told us what was happening up there, because we didn't know. And he was telling us that the British were after coming in, British soldiers were after coming in. Now at first, the nationalists or Catholic side, I prefer to call it nationalist side, wanted to support them. They welcomed the British because they were being burnt out by loyalist mobs. So they needed the protection there. And the RUC, well, it wasn't the RUC, it was the UDR, wasn't it UDR, the
Ulster
RUC?
Defence Regiment.
Were there at the moment, but they were a totally Protestant paramilitary force. And they would not help the Catholics at all. They were actually letting the mobs in to burn them out. So, as I said, there's a lot of refugees came south. And we met them, and that's how I became a Republican. From that, I said, this is not fair. Why should this happen?
I think depending on what teachers you had in school as well. I know that we had a particular teacher in school who he fancied himself as Dirty Harry.
Who was it?
I won't say.
Okay.
But he was in the Star. And he was in the Star as the.
Oh, right. Was he from Mayo? Was he?
He was.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
But his attitude was, they shouldn't be here, and if you have the opportunity, do whatever you can to get rid of them. And he'd bring us to places like Kilmainham Jail. He would teach us about, and this is primary school. We're like kids up to the age of about 12, and then you leave and you go to secondary school. So he's telling us the history, and he's bringing us to places like Kilmainham Jail, and he's teaching us about the 1916 Rising, about 1798 in Theobald Wolfe Tone, and and it's very passionate, because the whole of the basis of the Irish rebellion, going back to 1798 and moving onward, was blood sacrifice. They knew that they were going to die. They knew that they were going to be killed. But they felt that by sacrificing their lives, that may actually change. Because even in 1916, the general public overall were not in favour. They didn't support the rebellion against the British. But when they executed the leaders of 1916, public opinion started to change. And they knew that this would happen, and they sacrificed their lives basically to educate the people.
That's absolutely true.
Were you willing to die?
Yeah. I
weren't afraid of this.
I would have done anything.
Yeah.
I would have done anything. I know at the time I was very, very much into this is what I'm doing. And I joined the IRA after, do you remember we had the hunger strikes here? And that was the time, that was the real time that changed for me, when there was people dying week after week from hunger strike. All just because the British wouldn't let them murder, wouldn't call them political prisoners, which they were political prisoners. And that really changed my whole views. That was when I decided that I was going to do something about it. even though the war down here didn't really affect us day to day, you know, we could hear about it. But
I think that I agree with you. The hunger strike from the early 1980s, especially when Bobby Sands died on the 5th of May, 1991. There was an upsurge in public opinion, and there was a kind of a huge rallying of people to question what's going on here. Why have you let 10 men die for the right to be treated as political prisoners? Simple little things about their refusal to wear prison uniforms because they did not see themselves as convicts. They had the right to wear their own clothes. And I suppose preceding the hunger strikes was what we call the blanket protest, where men refused to wear any of the clothes and just have blankets. And then they went on the dirty protest, where they smeared the inside of their cells with excrement.
But the reason they did this was because when the prisoners would only wear a blanket, and when they had what they call slopping out time, it's basically you have a potty, and you don't, you know, like a bucket that you use to go to the toilet. And every day, in the morning, the door would open, and you could bring this and you pour it down. You pour it down the toilet. But when the lads, the guys would come out in their blankets to pour to empty the bucket, the guards used to get them and beat them, and search them, and you know, internal humiliate them, to try and break them, to try and, you know, so the prisoners decided, well, we're not going to stop out anymore. So at first they used to just throw things under the door, you know, the urine, and just get it out of the cell. But then what the guards did, they blocked the cell, the bottom of the cell door, so they actually had nowhere to put it. So the only thing they could do was actually smear it on the walls. It was the only thing you could do, and it sounds horrific. And you to be in that situation, you're talking about you're in a cell with two people. So it's not just your own. You know, it must have been but you must have, if you were in that much the state of mind to do that, it must be really. And
you must have a very strong state of mind to be able to do that, because very dedicated.
And did you find out about this through the press or through word of mouth? How did it get to your ears?
The reason we got that is because maybe the likes of
Father Peter McFall. Father Fall,
or
Catholic priest.
The Republican movement used to would find out, or would let us know what was going on.
In church,
not necessarily. No, not in mass. No, the religion thing.
Well, this particular priest would go and visit the prisoners, and he would administer to the prisoners because they'd be Catholic. And he started to tell the stories.
Weren't all Catholic.
Well, they weren't all
Catholic,
of course, no.
And the thing about the religion side of it, it was not a religious war. It was nothing to do with religion. The father of, say, the Republican movement here, Wolfe Tone, was a Protestant.
Most of the original.
So it's a lie to say it was about religion.
That was something that was probably spun by the British.
It was, because
to create further divide.
Yeah. And they used that, and now, and there would be people in, say, if they're not knowledgeable and they think there might be a Republican, and they might say, oh, bloody Protestants or whatever, but it's nothing to do with that. And the Republican movement turned from being just a nationalist movement, as in the United Ireland, to a socialist movement. We were fighting for a socialist republic, the whole of Ireland being a socialist state. So in other words, that everybody within that state is equal. I still feel that way about even with my art. I think it's everybody's equal. It doesn't matter where you're born or how much money you have. Everybody has the same right to breathe the air we breathe and live. And I think that ideal will always be with me. It's not necessarily going to work here, because there's always going to be people. Greed is one thing that happens to will always happen, as we saw from, say, the Soviet Union. I mean, they're the biggest gangsters, you know, going because they're so greedy. And it happened in Ireland only the last few years.
The Anglo-Irish Bank, the Golden Circle they called it, which was a group of individuals who supported the government. They used to have their tent at the Galway races, and they'd be throwing huge amounts of money into the government party Fianna Fáil at the time. And I suppose they were given carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. So what they did was went off and got multi-millions worth of loans from banks and have never repaid them. And now that's why the ordinary taxpayer has to pay off all these. That's why our children and their children are going to be paying for the rest of their life. That's why there's such bad austerity here.
Also, is Cyprus, how's Cyprus? Is it bad? Like, is it like there are people able to pay their mortgage?
They're in denial.
Are they? Do you know, I felt that because Miriam's husband he was working bank. Oh no problem here. And I was going, there's going to be a problem everywhere. The only place there's no problem is in Germany. You know, it's the only place. That's it. You know, because they control all the money. They lent us all the money in the first place. Drink my knife and fork. Thank you.
Well, Germany tried to conquer Europe through 2 wars, and I suppose now they're going to conquer Europe economically.
That's the thing. And you see, that's why I think the whole thing about revolution or war or armed struggle it's gone now. It's actually obsolete. And if you know about say the anonymous movement and say all the internet stuff, that's how to conquer government or to conquer is to take over media, but not by blowing and bombing and shooting. They can use that against you so much. You know, it's very easy. But I think the only way is if you can control the money, if you control the
one with the money has the power.
Are we off now? Are we?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, we can relax. Right, we're only joking about all that. You know our Irish sense of humour.
Okay, now we can talk freely.
What do you want to do? So what is this? This is a leg of lamb.
Looks lamb in there, yeah.
Did you have nice food inside the house?
Yeah, the milkshake. I came back with... No. You know what? I didn't need any
Listen, please. What do you want, red or white?
Is that white? The separate...
I asked him if he fell in love with any separate women. No.
Couldn't meet them. You know, I met women, but they were all sort of English or Irish. You know, we were living over. So no big romance. That's why I'm not there, obviously.
Yeah.
The bullet story didn't work with them. See, maybe man got talking to the right people. They probably just saw me thought it was deformed or something. Thought, well, it's birth defect.
It should have worked.
No.
It should have worked. And Cyprus, did they go down well in Cyprus?
Mine?
Yes.
I haven't shown them in Cyprus.
You haven't?
No, I'm afraid.
Why?
Because they like their icons so much, and I've sort of twisted them a little bit.
How do you
He's
twist
put his own
that?
slant on it.
Well, you know.
How so?
Well, you know, you've seen some of them. And what I do is, you take an example. I have one.
I'm just going to put them.
I could show you. It'd be easier just to show because I'm not too good at remembering.
Fine.
No, that's Joe's he took.
Mine's here.
No, it's mine he took actually off the chair. He's a little tea leaf. Smarty! Get off the table.
Did he taste the
Oh, yes. He was found in Mayo, emaciated with the mange. They never. Oh, Donegal.
He looks really good now.
Ken, when we got him, he was what? 13 kilos.
Jeez.
You know what he is now? Have a guess.
Oh, I have
35 kilos. He's heavier than Dewey. He's heavier than Nero.
And he doesn't look at his income, Nick.
We weighed him last Thursday at the vets.
You see this piece here? Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
it's standing up. It's a portrait.
So
the camera on?
No.
Here.
so this one is I call it. This one is rendition.
Rendition.
And
Like the
Like
people who are being
redemption, rendition?
no rendition flights.
You know
where
where
they
they-
take people blindfolded and moved them to Guantanamo Bay. Basically,
They moved them to
countries.
torture them. The Americans bring them to some country that they're
Like Poland have rendition prisons
Yeah.
that don't
They call it
don't exist.
They call it extraordinary rendition. So they'll take a prisoner, say from Afghanistan, and bring them to one of the bases, American bases in Cyprus. Well, the American base,
Yeah.
a British base in
Yes.
Cyprus, and torture that person there. So what I did with the icon, this was an icon of Jesus coming off the cross and
Right
being.
here.
So
Oh,
I painted it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, it's good.
And then what I did was I hammered it was on plaster, and I actually hammered Jesus away from. So he's gone. He's been taken away.
This one here,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
white.
So it's basically a drum, and then he's gone. So do you understand? So that's where I've changed the icons. So I think some people in Cyprus might find that offensive.
I think it's really interesting. Look, this is Jesus.
Hey,
This
no,
is-
come, look, no, here, Tris, here,
It's one of
come,
my favourite actually. That one.
There's more.
come, look.
Jesus
Lovely
has
wine,
been kind of
wine.
hammered away,
Fine.
Put something in.
as if he's a hollow shadow of himself, maybe.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's really
I've started drinking more white actually lately.
Me too.
No,
But I said to
Smarty,
Joe, get
no.
red because I
How
thought
big is this?
No, but I got two.
The dimension?
Was so white.
Out from, not it's all the way, out from there up. I make them on, I use old floorboards and doors and
Oh, yeah.
things like that. 'Cause
Smarty,
I
come.
went to in the old churches in Cyprus, which I love
Would you
going
like
in the
to-
old icons. I love it and look, I just go, oh. And
And
then
then
some of them are
everything
done on old panels and
Yeah.
wood
Ah.
that has rotted
No.
away. But I love the aging of it and all that process. Beautiful. I can spend so much time in the churches there. You know, I went to the one where Marquia.
Come on.
Majeras.
Majeras.
In the mountain?
Yes.
No,
The
come.
church near in his
Smarty.
town.
Give me your plate.
Smarty, you go.
And
Right,
it was-
time out.
Ow,
we
come
said-
on.
Thank you.
Zaviki with Melizane.
Okay.
It's not really actually.
Right.
I'm out.
Just
Right, you got me outside.
with
Ah,
garlic,
outside.
with
Outside,
and
out.
garlic.
But it's Greek yogurt.
It is Greek actually. It's the only
Stop
Greek
it.
yogurt I get
Stop
from
it.
Lidl. It's the only place
Okay,
where they
you
sell
get it.
Stop
original
it.
Greek yogurt,
Yeah.
not Greek
Stop
style
it.
yogurt, but they
Make your
import it
minute,
from
please.
Greece.
Have you
Toby.
exhibited your art here?
Yeah, I did one show here. Well, no, I did 2 shows here.
Frank, give me your plate.
I'm maybe going to where is it? Sweden. It's I can't remember what's the capital of Sweden.
Stockholm.
Stockholm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in contact with a gallery over there.
Oh, go on.
So for the film that they're making, I hope to bring the film over. So because it'll be my first exhibition away from Ireland, I haven't had an exhibition. So, but I don't get any funding. I have to fund it all myself, so I find it very hard. Yeah.
You live off your art.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Bravo. Well, I do. I make some. I make some craft. Not from this stuff. I don't make, unfortunately. But I make other things.
Like show us.
I don't know. Do you have any?
Slate, the Olm stones,
I
which
might
are
have
ancient Celtic art.
So I sell to tourists.
Yeah.
There is a lot of tourism in Ireland, huh?
Yeah, but that's how we make our money. You know?
Have some of this. Should I show you? Yummy. These are all the pretty lamps we've been seeing in Ireland.
You look at these holes.
Oh my god, he could an AK-47. Oh Jesus.
What do you
Oh,
mean?
oh, well,
This is
yeah.
what tourists buy.
No,
That's the son.
it's my son.
Ah, oh my god, it's massive.
One of them.
What is he holding? It's a real gun?
Yeah.
But where did you find it?
I'll tell you.
It's supposed to be. Is that camera off? That was decommissioned.
This gun is. I'm making some art with it.
No, Toby.
I can't find my. He's 15 actually. Actually, very soon. I do. No.
No. There's
Rowan on this. I must say.
you're getting some.
Well,
Oh,
he's a
yeah.
twin.
Solid.
He's a brother. Like Rourke has a twin, Fintan,
Oh, so you have two of them.
and Leah Rosa.
So you
Yeah,
have three.
I've got
No.
I've got 3 kids. Well, my ex-wife had another child beforehand, so he's
Ah,
two on.
yeah, cool on.
So he's
yeah,
he's
well,
my
he's-
son as well.
Of course he
Yeah.
is.
4.
Of course he
so
is.
4.
4. Yeah, of course.
Leah has 5.
You're 5.
Martin.
Yeah.
So where do you? Are you the oldest?
Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
From
Somewhere in
from
the
the real
middle.
birth one and the others that
What do you mean the real?
It's
the
birth?
real one
Yeah.
that came out of the same uterus. I mean.
Okay. A little bit more information.
The anarchist mask. What
Yeah,
is it?
it's Guy Fawkes.
Oh, yeah.
Guy
Guy Fawkes.
Fawkes. What is it? V for Vendetta.
Yes.
I saw the
Yeah.
film.
Great, isn't it?
I love the film.
The film is amazing.
Which film?
V for Vendetta.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen it?
No.
It's fucking brilliant.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. All
And it's from a
the
cartoon.
anonymous people, called anonymous, they all use this. I know the Occupy movements use it also.
Oh, really?
And it's really good. I
So
think
it's something in common.
yeah. This is the new revolution. It has to be a worldwide revolution, not just say for Cyprus to be free. We all have to be free. We have to be because
Yes,
we
yes.
need to get rid of all the
1%.
yeah.
The 1%.
We need to get the 1%
Basically.
who owned everything. You know. Yes, you can make another piece. So it isn't it? Way.
Well, you were commissioned to make that piece for Kofi Annan. That time.
Yeah. And actually, do you know what?
Well done.
Well, no, I wouldn't actually want to make it for Kofi Annan anymore because it's the UN. I don't have anything to do. I hate the
No.
UN. So unfortunately, but yeah, I did. But I'm angry again. UN. What were you using? Oh yeah, this.
Where is Kat? Oh, he's in there.
Yeah, say it was very bit cold.
What
Yeah.
happened to the rest of the ex-IRA movement? Have they found their way as it's...
Well, funny enough, I was talking to most of them became alcoholics.
Really?
All of them became alcoholics.
Why?
Because the war's over, what else do you do?
A lot of people-
Most of them split up from their wives. Most of them.
A lot of would have been dedicated their lives to it, and maybe after 20, 25, 30 years, it's over. What are they going to do? What do? They didn't have careers. They never.
Yeah, they
were
dedicated
very
their whole
much-
life to it. She was a
I-
surgery nurse.
She was a sister.
Hey,
She was
that's
a
Yeah.
top
sure.
theatre.
No.
She left the nursing business because of the
Male.
surgeons. The surgeons were just pigs.
She went out
They
to.
were
That was the girl I was telling you.
Leah's
that-
brother is a
that
surgeon,
was,
though, he's
um,
an orthopedic
She took an
surgeon,
overdose,
so-
so they stuck
but
her on
he's
a
not.
plane, and when the
He's not
plane
like
landed in
that.
South Africa, she died. Very good friend of Ken's as well.
Oh, no.
Hey.
It was terrible. That was
No,
horrific.
no,
That was-
don't even think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Probably one of the worst funerals I was ever at in my entire life.
And you know the guy she was going out with, his son hung himself 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
15-year-old.
Kidding me. That's the
There's
guy
a
down
lot
in
of
Kerry.
suicide happening in Ireland. A lot of
Massive,
suicide.
especially young men.
Young male.
Young men.
It's the changeover between. I mean, women obviously have the right to have equal rights, totally, and we should have had it years ago. But I think males do not know their position in society
Anymore, no.
Young males, like they just don't know. They're lost.
Traditionally
No,
in
I think
Ireland,
it's the
the
weather.
male was the provider,
Probably right there too.
Yeah.
and traditionally it's still there. Men are not